Hello my lovelies, you're welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. It's absolutely free and it helps my channel grow. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a straight dart bustier mono sleeve dress. But in this case, I'm not going to show you the dress parts, I'm just going to focus on the bustier part. So basically, when I was learning how to sew, when I was starting out with sewing, I made a lot of mistakes when I tried to make a mono sleeve with either a straight dart bustier or a princess dart bustier. I would realize that I would make it, especially when I was making it with lining as well, I would realize that I would make the mono sleeve bustier, and then when I'm done, the mono sleeve of the fabric is on this side and the mono sleeve of the lining is on the other side. So I just thought to make this video for you all because I felt like it was such a struggle for me to learn how to make a mono sleeve the right way, and now that it's a lot easier for me to do it, I decided to show you guys the easy, simple way, correct way to draft, cut and sew mono sleeve straight dart bustier. So if you want to learn how to make a straight dart mono sleeve bustier, then definitely keep on watching. Without further ado, let's get right into the video.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. So I'm using 2 pattern papers for this. I simply folded them in half, but I made sure that the one I'll be using for my back piece is slightly wider than the one I'm using for my front piece. I drew a baseline, and from that baseline I'm marking the bust point, under bust and half length measurements, which are 12 inches, 15 inches and 19 inches respectively. Now I'm simply going ahead to extend those lines. Now I'm measuring her nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2 plus half inch. Now her nipple to nipple measurements is 8 inches. Dividing that by 2, it's 4 inches plus half an inch, which gave me 4.5 inches. So that's what I marked. And I'm just labeling each of those lines. Now I'm marking 1/4 inch allowance on the under bust line and then 1 inch on the half length line. So it's 1/4 inch on the under bust line and 1 inch on the half length line. And I'm just connecting those lines, and then I'm joining that to the bust point line, or to the point where the bust point meets the nipple to nipple line. And now at the baseline I marked 1 inch as well, and then I'm also connecting those points with a diagonal line. Now I'm making sure that I replicate those same lines on my back piece so I don't have to go ahead and measure it again. I'm also marking that zip allowance line on the back as well. Now I'm going ahead to cut out the half length because I wouldn't be needing the excess pattern paper. I also went ahead to just cut along those lines. Now having done that, this is what the front piece looks like. I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm going to go ahead and just replicate those lines on the back. I'm still marking the 4.5 inches line, which is the nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2 plus half an inch. And now I'm just extending those lines. I'm going ahead to label the lines like I did with the front piece. Now I simply marked half of her shoulder measurements on the baseline, and now from that nipple to nipple line I simply marked 1.5 inches. From that on that baseline, from the half of the shoulder measurements, I simply marked another 1 inch, and now I'm just connecting those points with a diagonal line. Half of her shoulder measurements is 15 inches. Half of her shoulder measurements is 7.5 inches, which is 15 inches divided by 2. So that was what I marked on the baseline. I went ahead to just cut along those lines. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew the paper. You can use a needle and a thread, or you can go ahead and use your sewing machine to do that. So this is how I'm going to sew the front piece, and I already showed you how I'm going to sew the back piece. Now after sewing, this is what we have. This is the front piece and the back piece. I just sewed them from bottom to the top. Now I'm placing the front piece on top of the back piece so I can mark the measurements I need. So I made sure that the bust point and under bust were correct, and now I'm simply just dividing her bust measurement by 4. So I simply folded my tape twice, and then I placed that measurement on just above the bust, and then I just marked that, and then I added 2 inches allowance. Now I'm folding her shape measurements, or dividing it by 4, folding my tape twice, and then placing that just under the bust, and then adding extra 2 inches allowance as well. Now I'm just connecting those points with a diagonal line. Now I'm marking her shoulder measurement divided by 4, which is 7.5 inches, and then I marked another 1 inch allowance. Now from the baseline, I'm marking 8 inches downwards, which is going to serve as the armhole, and now I'm just drawing a curve to connect that armhole with the shoulder allowance. And now I'm just cutting along those lines. I cut both the front and the back pieces together. And this is what we have once I've done that. Now I'm going to go ahead and loosen the stitch I used to join the pieces of the front and the back. Once I've loosened the front bits, this is what I have. This is the front bits loosened and all the pieces separately. I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm also going to loosen the stitch that I used to sew the back piece as well, and this is what it looks like once I've loosened that. Now I'm just cutting open the center back, so there's that zip allowance there, and this is what it looks like. Now I went ahead to sew all 3 pieces of the front together, and I also sewed the back pieces together as well. Now once I've done that, I'm placing the back piece, making sure that the wrong side is facing upwards, and then I'm placing the front bit on top of the back one, making sure that the right side is facing upwards. It's important that you place this correctly so you can get what you want. Now from the baseline, I'm simply marking 6 inches downwards. That's how low I want my mono sleeve to be, like the part that doesn't have a sleeve, or that's how low I want the neck depth to be. So from that point, I simply marked the width of the sleeve that's actually going to be there. I marked the width to be 4 inches wide. That's from the center, 4 inches wide from the center. And then I went ahead to just trim that curved line that forms the mono sleeve. This part is entirely up to you. You can make your mono sleeve as low or as high as you want. You can make it square instead of curved. You can really do anything you want with this. It's all up to you. Now at the back, I'm simply labeling the pieces. SF stands for side front, CF stands for center front, and SF stands for side front as well. So it's important you label that so you don't get confused. For the back, CB stands for center back and SB stands for side back. Just so that I know what parts I'm working with, because once I loosen it like I'm doing now, it gets confusing if you don't label it. So just go ahead. I just went ahead to loosen all the pieces so they are separate. And these are the pieces of the back. I've loosened them, and these are what they look like. This is what they look like. For the front, this is what it looks like after loosening. Now I'm just taking my fabric and placing it, and then I'm just placing the pattern with the labels I just made, I'm making sure that the labels are facing upwards. It's important because the side you've written those labels is the back, like it's the wrong side of the pattern. So you're going to make sure that you're facing the right side of the pattern on the right side of the fabric, and that is why the wrong side is facing upwards. It is very, very important that you get this part right, otherwise you would make a mistake. So yeah, make sure you get it right. So as you can see, the right side of the pattern is still facing the right side of the fabric. Now on the wrong side of the fabric, I simply went ahead to write the same labels that I did on the, or that I wrote on the pattern paper. I made sure that I replicated that on the fabric as well. And just like I did with the fabric and the pattern, I'm using the fabric now, the pieces I've cut, I'm using that as a pattern to cut my lining. I've already gone ahead to gum my lining with a soft gum. So I simply made sure that I placed my pieces on the lining, making sure that the part I labeled was facing upwards. Very important. Now this is these are my front pieces rather, and I've already gone ahead to cut them on the lining. So I'm just taking out my fabric because I want to gum the breast pad on the lining, not on the fabric, because I'm using the poly fabric and I don't see the need to, gum the breast pad on the poly fabric or scuba fabric, whatever you call it. Now from the bottom, I'm marking 2.5 inches upwards because that is the amount of allowance I left from my underbust to the half length. Now at the bust area, the width of the breast pad is going to be about 3 inches, and that's what I marked. And then I'm just drawing a curve to connect those 2 points. Now I'm going to place my breast pad. I'm placing the shiny side of the breast pad that has the sticky surface. I'm placing that sticky surface on the lining at the point where I'd already gummed or on the side where I'd already gummed the soft gum. And then I'm just going ahead to just trim according to what I had already marked. Once I've cut the breast pad for one of the side fronts, I'm going ahead to just use that breast pad to cut the other one, so it's like a mirror image of the first one I cut. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm speaking a lot of English today. So yeah, that's what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some water and then iron it, making sure that the breast pad sticks to the lining. And once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and flip it to the reverse side, which is the right side. And then I'm going to trim out any excess breast pad that is there. And then I'm also going to go ahead and iron it again, just to make sure that it sticks properly. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and sew. These are 2 of my back pieces. I'm just going to sew them together. So definitely you have to check to see which pieces go with what pieces, so that you don't make a mistake when you're joining them. So this is the one side of the back piece, and this is the other 2 back pieces I'm going to be joining together. And these are the 2 back pieces, and you can see that they just flow seamlessly with each other. Now these are my front pieces. I'm just going to go ahead and join them as well. I'm going to start with the right side and the center side. The right side and the middle one. What am I saying? I'm just going to join 2 pieces of the front, okay? Don't get confused. 2 pieces of the front. So this is one side front and the center front. Now I'm joining the second side front to the center front. I hope I'm not confusing you guys. If you get confused, just pay more attention to what you're saying and less about what I'm talking about, because it's just a whole lot to explain. So yeah, anyway, Once I'm done with that, once I'm done like joining both pieces, this is what we have. As you can see, it already looks really good. Now what I'm going to do is I went ahead to just do the same thing with the fabric. I just joined all the pieces together for the fabric as well. Now I'm taking the front side of the lining, and I'm also placing the front of the fabric on top of the lining. So I'm making sure that they are right sides facing, and then I'm just sewing on the wrong side. So I'm just sewing that the neck and the, just the neck area basically, and then I'm making sure that it's nice and neat. Now I'm opening that up, and I'm just going ahead to make sure that the lining and the allowance I got with the lining is facing the lining side, and then I'm going ahead to top stitch that so everything is nice and flat. And then I'm closing that up, and then I'm making sure that everything is nice and flat, and then I'm sewing the sides closed. Once that's done, I'm simply going to turn it to the right side, and this is what we have. Now I'm taking one of the back pieces, the lining and the fabric, I'm placing them right sides facing, and I'm also sewing the neck side as well. Now open that up, and I'm making sure that the allowance I got from sewing both pieces together faces the lining side, and then I'm top stitching on that. I'm going to flip that closed, and then I'm going to join or sew the two sides closed as well. Once that's done, I'm just going to turn this to the right side, and this is what we'll have. And then I'm going to take the other back piece, both the lining and the fabric, placing the fabric on top of the lining, making sure that they are right sides facing, and then I'm just sewing the top part as well. Just opening this up, making sure that the lining I got is facing the lining side. Making sure the allowance I got is facing the lining side. And then I'm going ahead to just top stitch that. Flipping that closed, I'm just going to go ahead and sew the sides down. I'm just going to go ahead and turn that to the right side, and this is what we have. So our back pieces are done, our front pieces are done. I'm going to go ahead and shape in that, and we have a beautiful dress. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.